Hello, chess friends. This is Sir Glenn Garcia again for another round of chess video. This time, gusto ko ipakita yung laro ko sa chess.com. But before that, I just want to mention that chess.com ay may bagong features. Isa dito sa pinakagusto ko yung tinatawag nating 3D, three-dimensional chessboard interface. So makikita natin sa videong ito, tuloy ngayon, na there is a certain settings na pwede mong baguhin yung anyo ng chessboard na gusto mong makita. At dahil 3D ito, medyo mas closer siya sa tunay na chessboard. So we learn chess in the way we actually use it in real life kasi hindi naman tayo nag-chess using the 2D chessboards eh. We play chess in real life using three-dimensional chessboard. So, or not actually 3D but real life chessboard. So, three-dimensional tries to capture yung experience ng isang player when actually playing on an actual board. So, let's review my game here. This is a game between me. This is my name, Verizon DSL, which I'm also a premium member. And against my opponent from Greece, rated 1806. I was handling the white pieces. I opened up with one of the opening that I'm trying to study right now, which is the B3, or also known as the Nimzo-Larsen attack. Okay. So after B3, ang gusto kong mangyari is ilagay agad sa long diagonal yung aking dark square bishop to use that in case my opponent castles kingside. And also, following the idea of thought ng mga hypermoderns, kasi dati, before, chess was believed na in order to control the center, or I mean, in order to be positionally good or dominating, one must control the center. And in order to do that, you must occupy the center with your pawns and pieces. And then comes another school of thought, spearheaded by Aaron Nimzovich and Sigbert Tarash. They said, actually not Sigbert Tarash is a supporter of the classical school of thought that the center should be occupied by pieces and pawns. But starting with the revolutionaries, thinkers such as Aaron Nimzovich, Richard Reti, and some, they said that there's not supposed to be kailangan lagyan ng pawn and pieces yung gitna. It can also be you let your opponent build the center and you try to attack the center with your pieces and pawn with your pieces from the side by putting your bishop on long diagonals and destroying your opponent's center by side blows. And because of that, a lot of openings were developed, like the Nimzo Indian, um, the King's Indian defense, and a lot of those systems are based on in that school of thought. So my opponent replied classically with d5, and I replied by putting my bishop on the long diagonal. So this is two schools of thought being taught together. Now my opponent, yung kalaban ko, sinusubukan niyang i-occupy yung center by means of pawns and pieces while I'm trying to let him do that and then destroy the center that he will build. So after e3, which is a very flexible move as compared to knight f3, kasi if knight f3, there's a possibility na ma-pin yung aking knight in case black will intend to play bishop g4. And also e3, after knight c6, I have the option to play bishop b5, which what happened to the game. Actually, in this position, a lot of games gives white a very strong middle game advantage if black will not support that in any way, like with the queen or with the bishop, because after I capture on c6, magkakaroon ng double pawn yung black. So iniwasan yun ng black. He played bishop d7 in order to meet bishop takes knight with bishop takes bishop. Wala siyang damage sa pawn structure. So I continued the main idea of the Nimzo-Larsen attack, which is to control the e5 pawn. And then my opponent replied with a6. Okay, if I captured on c6, kung kinain ko yung kabayo, magtatagumpay yung idea niya na huwag ngang magkaroon ng double pawn. So I decided not to do that and place my bishop very strongly on d3 square. Well, I know my bishop can be attacked here but by knight b4, but I can simply drop it back to bishop e2 and then drive back the knight on b4 by playing a side pawn move such as a3, no? So paalisin ko lang din, iiwas lang yung bishop ko sa harap ng king, tapos papaalisin ko lang din yung knight. So uh, we cannot say it's a waste move. So after f6 with the main idea of occupying the center with a pawn, I immediately realized that, oh, seryoso nga yung kalaban ko. Gusto niyang ma-reinforce yung e5. If I allowed that, such as mechanical moves such as castle e5, he would have created a very threatening and strong center. So what I did, what I noticed was after bishop d7, nawala ng suporta yung d5 pawn niya sa queen niya. So nakita ko yung weakness nun. So what I did is I tried to attack that, c4, para mapigilan yung pag-push niya sa e5. So he has to support it by playing e6. Then here I can actually eat it already. So kapag kinapture ko yan, kumapture siya sa d5, medyo yung f6 move niya looks silly. No, looks silly na. Because that square is supposed to be occupied by your knight on f6. And also, by playing f6, nagkaroon siya ng weakness sa light square diagonal na to. So, it makes his king more insecure after maybe castle king side. So, let's look further. I played knight c3, reinforcing the attack on d5. Trying to lure him to play e3. Kasi pag nag-e3 siya, I will play knight e2 and forcing him to capture on e3. So after, let's say for example, d4, knight e2, pawn takes pawn, f takes e pawn, very important idea. Because after f, bubukas yung f file ko, makakatulong yung open file na yan para sa atake ko, no? But my opponent knew better. He did not push that, but instead played knight b4, threatening my bishop. Well, I didn't put my bishop on e2 kasi nga dun ko nga balak i-attract yung knight ko kapag inatake ng pawn sa d4 pag nag-push to dito. Kaya diyan ko nilagay sa b1. And then after knight e7, which is another questionable move. I don't really like this move at all kasi it keeps the black's king on the center longer and it blocks the bishop on f8. Such as kasi kapag ang development ng piyesa mo, naghaharangan sila, hindi sila makalabas sa base nila, that would be very disadvantageous, lalo na kapag alam ng kalaban mo yung gagawin niya. So, I don't recommend really to play that. But instead, black could have uh, played perhaps bishop c6, reinforcing d5, and then probably bishop d6 and knight e. Then that's the time that you play knight e7. Or maybe, yeah, knight e7, knight g6, castle king side with a good looking center. Although after bishop c6 pala, kulong yung knight, no? So, better siguro is pawn takes c4 muna. And then after pawn takes pawn, I guess knight c6 na lang siguro. Or maybe a5, intending knight a6. I don't know because black's position is already difficult. Marami siyang pawn moves na unnecessary sa opening. After a3, he dropped back to c6 and then I captured on d5. And then he captured with the piece. Medyo good move yan kasi if he captured with the knight, he has to move the knight again para makamove lang yung dark square bishop. So I captured it. So now we see na yung pawn move niya na f6 is just weakened his king side, no? And then after d4, opening lines kasi such as kapag mas maganda yung pwesto ng pyesa mo, open position would favor the pieces na mas strongly placed. What do I mean by strongly placed? Okay, let's try to do a comparison. My knight on f3 might be the same as good as the knight on c6 but maybe slightly better kasi meron siyang harmony when in terms with my development, no, with my pawn chain on f2, e3, d4 and with my working with my bishop on b2. So slightly better yung knight ko sa f3. My bishop on b2 is definitely better than the bishop on f8 and my bishop on e1 eyeing the king side is better than the bishop on d7. So with this being said, kung nagkaroon ng clash yung pieces namin, my pieces would be better placed for a battle. So that's the idea behind opening the lines. So after c4, which is quite questionable for me because it gives white a very strong center. It After I capture on c4 and he recaptured back with the d pawn, it gives me the two pawn center abreast, which is the e3 and d4. And when I try to advance it, as you can see in the game later, it will create a very strong device or tool for white to attack black's position. So after takes, I played castle in order to, kasi kung bubuksan ko yung center, mas maganda na nakatago yung king ko para wala siyang counter. And then he tried to finish his development by playing bishop d6. Now in this position, we can already see how black is struggling to complete his development. I simply attack the pawn on c4, but I think much better would be queen c2 instead of bishop b1, no? Because after queen c2, b5, and then a4, black cannot complete his development by playing castle kingside because there's an immediate attack on the king side by playing queen takes h7 check. So I think I created an accuracy there. So forgive me for that. And I continued to pressure that. Okay, so after casting, you can already see how difficult his position is. Dahil already may pressure na agad sa king niya dahil dito sa light square bishop ko. No? My light square bishop is a very strong and useful piece because it can switch diagonals from this diagonal and from the A2 G8 diagonal to the B1 H7 diagonal. So very useful yung piyesa na yan. After E4, ayan, nakikita na natin how useful White's strong center is. He tried to get away from the pressure. I simply developed, playing rook e1, threatening e5. He tries to minimize the effect of the e5 advance. And then I played knight h4, another very strong move. It gives White's queen a leeway or daanan papunta sa h5 square, which threatens knight g6 check. Kapag nakapag knight g6 check ako, makita nyo meron siyang open check, hindi niya makakain yung kabayo dahil merong pin. Well, if he goes to g8, my bishop would be waiting there for him. So, nagiging critical na agad yung position niya. He never had a chance in this game dahil nga sa mga binigay niyang advantage sa akin. After he played knight e7, which is understandable, queen h5 para manullify niya yung effect ng knight g6 check, he played queen c7. Well, I cannot recommend another maybe another move because his position is already very difficult. Queen c7 maybe plans to advance the pawn on c3 to block my bishop b2 bishop, but it will open up my bishop on the a2. So I don't think this move really helps his position a lot. And as you can see, yung rook ko pwede pang sumali sa laban, no? Pwede siyang mag-rook cliff sa e3 and then sa h3, maybe g3, but because those squares are covered by the bishop, I need to use the pawn on e file para ma-block yung diagonal na yun. So medyo late na to, no? Kahit may threat siya rito sa h2, the advance already comes. Okay, e5, pawn takes, and then he threat my rook on e3. Okay, now I guess because ang favorite player ko is mga sharp players, no, attacking players like Kasparov, um, Anand, or other tactical players, no. I really like the idea of the imbalance of giving up material for activity of pieces. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng imbalance? No, I was reading a chess book named written by an international American master, namely Jeremy Silman. He discusses the correct way daw to analyze in chess is to recognize the imbalances present in the position. Maybe I'll be devoting a separate video on that, discussing what are those imbalances and how to use that in the game, especially in looking for good moves or better moves. Good moves is actually a general term. So I'll just create another video plot for the but for the meantime, I just need you to realize or to understand the following moves that I did. I played the very strong move e6. Although it comes like after bishop takes rook, pawn takes bishop, I can win two pieces, two minor pieces for a rook. Actually, yeah, it sounds like that or looks like that. But the more importantly is the opening of the diagonal. Itong bishop na to, no? Dahil nagkaroon ng opening or nabuksan na yan finally, no? I can use both of this diagonal, the b1 h7 diagonal and the a1 h8 diagonal to my advantage. Okay. Now I want to discuss a very important idea, no? Usually tinuturo ko to sa intermediate level, no? I call this the two kind of material advantage. Okay. The first type of material advantage is known as the AMA or the absolute material advantage. Ibig sabihin, lamang ka sa pyesa or lamang ka sa pawn. For example, if one side is has more forces than the other, then that's what we call the absolute material advantage. Kasi yung forces mo or yung worth value of pieces or is greater than your opponent. Okay, I also teach what I call the RMA or the relative material advantage. What is relative material advantage? Relative material advantage is the number of pieces present on a certain sector of the board. Usually, what you do is you divide the chessboard into two, into queen side and king side. Okay, so the original square where your queen stands up to her rook is the queen side, while the original square where your king stand at the initial part of the game up to his rook is what we call the king side. So ito makikita natin sa notation, the nakita natin A file hanggang D file is the queen side, while the E file up to the H file is the king side. What is RMA? RMA states that if your pieces, if the activity of your pieces is greater than your opponent on that part of the board, then that's where your attack should come from. Dun ka dapat aatake kasi nandun yung RMA mo. Okay? If your RMA is on the other side of the board at yung kalaban mo is nagkakaroon ng advantages, you try to look for ways to get to the defense of the attack sector, especially if the attack is an attack on the king. Because we already know that an attack on the king, especially if it leads to mate, is better than a positional attack on somewhere else, like the queen side. Okay? So, in this position, RMA is already seen, no? My rook has a potential to come very quickly to the attack on the E file, on the center, or maybe I'll do a rook clip on E3, H3, G3. My bishops are very active on the diagonals, which is very open sa king side ng kalaban. Right now, if we will look at the RMA, let's just count the pieces where nandyan sa side na yan. No? Hindi ko na isasama tong dalawang bishop. But if I count, I have a queen, knight, and a rook against black's rook, knight. So, the advantage of having the queen there on the king side is very enormous, no? Actually, Kasparov would even count the two bishops on the attack. So, I have like how many pieces? The bishop on a2, the bishop on b2, the rook on e file, the knight on h4, and the queen. So, I have 5 pieces attacking the king and only 2 pieces defending the king. Okay, possibly isama na natin yung queen dahil kapag na-clear yung 7th rank, he can defend horizontally, no? But still, 3 versus 5 is a very big advantage. So, what black did is he doesn't want complications to start with. So, what he did was bishop c6. And because of that, after white's final move, bishop to b1, we already see, no? Actually, pwede niya pang kainin yung rook ko ng buong buo, no? Wala nang suporta, but he's mated by my queen playing queen takes pawn and he is mate. And he has no decent way para mag-defend sa threat. If he goes knight g6, I simply capture it with the bishop. And he cannot move his pawn to h6 because kakainin ko lang yon. queen takes h6 followed by queen takes g7. O bagay, hindi pwede yun dahil mako-cover na ng queen yung file na yun. So, knight g6, maybe I'll just play